Hello students, this class we are going to discuss about protein structure with the main focus on the bonds and forces involved in stabilizing the protein structure. This comes in the third unit of your syllabus in the course bioinformatics. We need to understand about the protein structure and the bonds and forces involved in stabilizing protein structure in order to understand the protein structure prediction methods. And this concept of protein structure may not be new for you. I'm sure you would have studied in biochemistry course in the previous semester. Anyway, we'll try to recollect once again by following through the slides. Protein structure, as you all know, the proteins are the polymers of L-alpha amino acids. The protein structure is complex. To understand, it can be divided into 4 different levels: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, quaternary structure. The primary structure is the linear sequence of amino acids which forms the backbone of the polypeptides or the proteins. Here, the monomers of the proteins, nothing but the amino acids are held together by peptide bonds. Next level of protein structure is secondary structure. This secondary structure is the spatial arrangement of protein by twisting of the polypeptide chain. Because of this twisting of polypeptide chain, many amino acids, they come in close proximity to each other. Next level of protein structure is tertiary structure. This tertiary structure is the three-dimensional structure of a functional protein. The next level of organization is quaternary structure. There are many proteins. They consist of more than one polypeptide chain. These several polypeptide chains of a particular protein are called subunits, and the proteins containing more than one subunit are referred to as oligomers. These oligomers contain the quaternary structure of proteins. This quaternary structure is nothing but the spatial arrangement of the several subunits that are present in one particular protein. In this class, we are going to discuss the details of each level of protein structure, and at the end, we will also focus about the different types of bonds and forces involved in stabilizing this protein structure. This is the schematic representation by which we can represent different levels of protein structure organization. As it is shown here, the primary structure is indicated by a straight line. That means the linear sequence of amino acids. As it is explained in the previous slide, the secondary structure is just nothing but the twisting or folding of the polypeptide chain, because of which many amino acids will come in close proximity to each other. The three-dimensional conformation is referred to as tertiary structure. This is the functionally active protein. We would see the quaternary structural conformation in case of oligomeric proteins which contain more than one subunit. The spatial arrangement of these several subunits is called quaternary structure. This is just the schematic representation of different levels of protein structure. As I told you, we will go one by one, different levels of protein structure. First, the primary structure of protein. Each protein, it has its unique sequence of amino acids. This amino acid sequence is determined by the gene sequence. That means the gene which is present in the DNA that determines the amino acid sequence. The primary structure is mainly responsible for its function, and the amino acid composition of the protein that is responsible for its physical and chemical properties of the protein. As we discussed earlier, these amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, they are all held together by peptide bond. This is something similar to the phosphodiester bond in case of nucleic acids. Here, the peptide bond is the one that that links the amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. These bonds are strong and they serve as the cementing material between the individual amino acids. And how this peptide bond is formed? That peptide bond is formed between two amino acids by combining the amino group of one amino acid and the carboxyl group of the another amino acid. Then peptide bond is formed with the release of one molecule of water. The reaction, chemical reaction involved in the peptide bond formation will be shown in the next slide. Coming to the characteristics of these peptide bonds, this is a rigid and planar bond and it has got partial double bond characteristics. The characteristics are in between to the single and double bond. That is why it is described as partial double bond characteristics in nature. It exists in trans configuration and both the groups of the peptide bond CO and NH both are planar and they are involved in hydrogen bond formation. Look at this reaction. This shows how the peptide bond is formed as it was discussed in the previous slide. By combining the amino group of one amino acid and the carboxyl group of the another amino acid with the release of one molecule of water, you will have the formation of peptide bond, and the groups involved in this peptide bond are CO and NH. And all these peptide bonds are extensively involved in hydrogen bond formation, which are the main bonds that contribute to the stability of protein structure. Coming to the next level of protein structure, that is secondary structure of protein. The conformation of polypeptide chain by twisting or folding is referred to as secondary structure. Because of this twisting or folding, the amino acids are located close to each other in their sequence. Meaning, say for example, one amino acid which is present in the N terminal and another amino acid which is present in the C terminal. Because of this twisting or folding, after it forms the secondary structural conformation, these two amino acids may come close to each other because of this folding. There are two types of secondary structural conformations are present in protein structure, that is alpha helix and beta sheet. These are the main secondary structural conformations. First, we will discuss about alpha helix conformation. This is the most common spiral structure of protein. It has a rigid arrangement of polypeptide chain. The alpha helical structure conformation was proposed by Pauling and Corey in the year of 1951. This is considered to be one of the important discovery in biochemistry research. We'll discuss the important or salient features of alpha helix structural conformation. It is a tightly packed coiled structure with amino acid side chains extending outward from the central helix axis. It is stabilized. The alpha helix conformation is stabilized by extensive hydrogen bonding. It is formed hydrogen bonds are formed between the hydrogen atoms that are attached to peptide nitrogen and oxygen atom that is attached to the peptide C. Because we have seen the groups involved in peptide bond are NH and CO. These hydrogen bonds are formed between the H atom which is attached to the peptide nitrogen and O atom which is attached to the peptide carbon. Individually, if you look at the strength of these hydrogen bonds, they are individually weak, but collectively in a large number, they are strong to stabilize a helical conformation. All the peptide bonds which are present in a protein, they are all involved in, that means they all participate in hydrogen bonding except the first and last peptide bonds that are present in a protein. Coming to some numbers in helical structure conformation, each turn of the alpha helix, it contains about 3.5 amino acid, and it travels a distance of 0.54 nanometer. The spacing between two amino acids is 0.15 nanometer. And alpha helix is stable conformation which is formed with the lowest energy, and it is formed spontaneously. Continuing with the salient features of this alpha helix conformation, and there are right and left-handed alpha helices. The right-handed alpha helix is considered to be more stable than left-handed helix. There are certain amino acids, especially like proline, they disrupt the alpha helix conformation. So if the alpha helix conformation is present on the way in that stretch, if proline is present, it is likely to disrupt the conformation of alpha helix. In addition, if there are large number of either acidic or basic amino acids, that also interferes with the alpha helix conformation. As you all know, acidic means aspartate, glutamate are the amino acids. Likewise, basic amino acids are lysine, arginine, histidine. If in a particular protein there are large number of either this acidic or basic amino acids present, that also interferes with the helical conformation. So these are the important features of alpha helix conformation. It is the most stable structure. Extensively, it is stabilized by hydrogen bonding. Diagrammatically here it is represented the alpha helix conformation. It is a spiral structure. All the peptide bonds are involved in hydrogen bonding. As we discussed, the hydrogen bonds are formed between peptide, the hydrogen which is attached to the peptide nitrogen, and oxygen which is attached to the peptide carbon. All the peptide bonds are involved in hydrogen bonding except the first and last peptides that are present in one particular protein. Coming to the next secondary structural conformation, that is beta pleated sheets. Simply, we also refer these beta pleated sheets as beta sheets. These beta sheets are composed of two or more segments of fully extended polypeptide chains. In the beta sheets, the hydrogen bonds are formed between neighboring segments of polypeptide chains, several polypeptide chains, and they are held together by hydrogen bonds. That's how the beta pleated sheets are formed. These beta pleated sheets are of two different types, parallel and anti-parallel beta sheets. How they are different? If the polypeptide chains in the beta sheets, if they are arranged in parallel, that means in the same direction, they are called parallel beta sheets. If they are arranged in the anti-parallel direction, they are anti-parallel beta sheets. That means the polypeptide chains are arranged in opposite direction. Whether they are parallel or anti-parallel, these polypeptide segments are held together by hydrogen bonds. Sometimes these beta sheets are formed by separate polypeptide chains. In that case, the hydrogen bonds are formed between these polypeptide chains. That means the hydrogen bonds are interchained, or the beta sheet may be formed by a single polypeptide chain by folding back on to itself. In that case, the hydrogen bonds are interchanged. Beta pleated sheets are formed by one or more polypeptide chains. They may be parallel or anti-parallel depending upon how the segments are arranged. They are arranged in the same direction. They are parallel. Arranged in opposite direction, they are anti-parallel. And the segments are held together by hydrogen bonding. It could be interchain or it could be intrachain. In this diagram, the structure of beta pleated sheets are shown. As discussed, the polypeptide chains are held together by the hydrogen bonds. It can be between the chains. If it is the same polypeptide chain forming the beta sheet by folding onto itself, in that case, the hydrogen bonds are intrachain. As we discussed, these are of two different types. In B, it is shown parallel beta sheets where all the polypeptide chains are arranged in the same direction and the hydrogen bonds are formed to hold them together. Whereas anti-parallel beta sheets, the polypeptide segments are arranged in opposite direction, that means anti-parallel to each other. These are the different conformations of beta sheets, which is the second most common secondary structural element of protein structure. That completes the secondary structure conformation of proteins. Coming to the next level of organization of protein structure, that is tertiary structure of protein. As I mentioned earlier, tertiary structure is nothing but the three-dimensional structure of a functionally active protein. It is a compact structure in which the interiors are formed by hydrophobic side chains and hydrophilic groups are present on the surface of the protein molecule. Why is it like that? Hydrophobic residues are inside and hydrophilic residues are on the surface of the protein molecule. This kind of arrangement ensures the stability to the protein structure, because if generally these protein structures are in association with water molecules. Hydrophobicity means it has repulsion towards the water molecules. That is how the protein interior is formed by the hydrophobic amino acids, whereas the hydrophilic residues are present on the surface of the protein structure, so that the protein structure can get the overall stability by this kind of arrangement. Next, let's look at the bonds that are present in tertiary structure of protein. Definitely, hydrogen bonds are present. In addition to the hydrogen bonds, there are also disulfide bonds present. Disulfide bonds are formed wherever there are cysteine residues. There we would see the formation of disulfide bonds. In addition, we will also see ionic interactions and also hydrophobic interactions. All these different bonds and interactions, they contribute to the tertiary structure of proteins. The next level of protein structure is quaternary structure. Some proteins, they consist of 2 or more polypeptides, which may be identical or they may be unrelated to each other. Such proteins are termed as oligomers and they possess quaternary structural conformation. The individual polypeptide chains which are present in these oligomers are called monomers or protomers or subunits. A dimer consists of 2 polypeptides while a tetramer consists of 4. In general, if more than 2 subunits are present, they are called oligomers. Then what are the bonds that are present in quaternary structure? The monomeric subunits are held together in the three-dimensional space by non-covalent bonds like your hydrogen bonds, hydrophobic interactions and ionic bonds. These ionic bonds are nothing but electrostatic interactions. What is the importance of these oligomeric proteins? Many oligomeric proteins, they play important role in the regulation of metabolism and cellular function. Few of the examples of oligomeric proteins are, I hope you know, oligomeric proteins means the amino acids containing more than 1 subunit. These are the proteins display the quaternary structural conformation by the arrangement of these subunits in the three-dimensional space. Examples of these oligomeric proteins are hemoglobin, aspartate transcarbamylase, lactate dehydrogenase. These are all few examples of oligomeric proteins. Let's now discuss about the bonds responsible for protein structure. At the secondary structural conformation level, we discussed about hydrogen bonds. And then before that, at the primary structural level, we discussed about peptide bond. Then when we discussed about the tertiary structure, I mentioned about hydrophobic interactions, ionic interactions, and when we discussed about quaternary structure, in addition to these hydrogen bonds, hydrophobic interactions, ionic interactions, van der Waals forces are also involved. So one by one, let's now see a little bit more in detail the bonds and forces involved in stabilizing protein structure. We can divide these bonds in 2 different types, covalent bonds and non-covalent bonds. The covalent bonds present in protein structure are peptide bond and disulfide bond. As you all know, peptide bond is formed in the primary structure of protein, that is the bond holding the building blocks or the monomers of proteins. Those are nothing but amino acids. The characteristics of the peptide bond just now we discussed. It is a covalent bond, rigid and partial double bond characteristics. Next covalent bond involved in protein structure is disulfide bond. These are also strong bonds in protein structure. You will see the disulfide bond formation by the sulfhydryl groups of two cysteine residues. By the sulfhydryl groups of two cysteine residues to produce cysteine. And these disulfide bonds could be formed in a single polypeptide chain, or it could be between different polypeptide chain. If two cysteines are present within the same polypeptide chain, the disulfide bond can be formed intra chain disulfide bond. If two cysteine residues are present in different polypeptide chain, these two cysteines are involved in forming disulfide bond, which is going to be intra chain disulfide bonds. These disulfide bonds also contribute to the structural conformation and stability of proteins. The next type of bonds present in protein structure are non-covalent bonds. These non-covalent bonds, many of it we have already seen, but in one place we will discuss now. Hydrogen bonds, hydrophobic bonds, ionic interactions, and van der Waals forces. We will look at one by one. Hydrogen bonds, these are formed by sharing hydrogen atoms between the nitrogen and carboxyl oxygen of different peptide bonds. Nitrogen is missing here. Please make note of it. And each hydrogen bond, if you look at individually, it is a weak, but collectively they are strong enough to stabilize the protein structure. A large number of hydrogen bonds, as I told you, significantly contribute to the stability of protein structure. You would see several hydrogen bonds form involving all the peptide groups except the first and last peptide bonds in a protein structure. Next non-covalent bonds are hydrophobic bonds. The non-polar side chains of neutral amino acids, they tend to be closely associated with each other in the proteins. These are not true bonds. Mostly these hydrophobic forces are observed in aqueous environment where these hydrophobic molecules are forced to be together. Next non-covalent interaction that is present in proteins is electrostatic bonds. These are formed by interactions between negatively charged groups of acidic amino acids and positively charged groups of basic amino acids. These are electrostatic interactions. Other type of bonds or forces are van der Waals forces. These are also non-covalent associations which are formed between electrically neutral molecules. These are formed by electrostatic interactions which are developed due to permanent or induced dipoles. So these are all the non-covalent bonds which stabilize protein structure. What are all the non-covalent bonds stabilize protein structure? Hydrogen bonds, hydrophobic interactions, then electrostatic bonds or ionic interactions, then van der Waals forces. These are all the non-covalent interactions. What are the covalent bonds that contribute to the protein stability? Peptide bond, we discussed about the features, and also disulfide bonds. This diagram shows the bonds in protein structure diagrammatically, whatever we have discussed. A indicates the disulfide bond formation. As we discussed, disulfide bond is formed between the sulfhydryl groups of two cysteine residues to form cysteine. So this is how the disulfide bond is formed. The B indicates the hydrogen bonding between the peptide nitrogen and carbonyl oxygen. Several hydrogen bonds are formed to stabilize the protein structure. Now we would see here in C the hydrophobic interaction between the neutral amino acids or two hydrophobic amino acids, isoleucine, leucine, both are hydrophobic amino acids. These are the forces or interactions between the side chains of two hydrophobic amino acids. These are not true bonds as we discussed earlier. The D is the ionic interactions or the electrostatic interactions which are formed between the negatively charged acidic groups and the positively charged basic groups. These are all different covalent and non-covalent interactions which are involved in stabilizing the protein structure. Here at last, I just want to show you the schematic representation of the human insulin structure. You would see here, it is a oligomer containing two polypeptides, chain A, chain B. You would see two different types of disulfide bonds here. One disulfide bond is present in A chain, which is intra-chain, involving two cysteine groups present in the same polypeptide chain. Whereas another two disulfide bonds are present intra-chain, involving two cysteine residues, one from A chain and another from B chain. Similarly, one more disulfide bond is formed here between chain A and chain B, forming the intra-chain disulfide bond. So this is the diagrammatic representation of human insulin structure. This is all I want to discuss in today's class. Basically, we discussed about different levels of protein structure, primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary structure. What are all the different bonds involved in stabilizing this protein structure, dividing them into two different heads, covalent and non-covalent interactions. Many times in bioinformatics exam, without any bioinformatics stuff, this is one important question. The question might come as explain the protein structure organization. You would just explain the four different levels of protein structure, including its bonds and forces involved. Sometimes in an elaborate fashion, they will ask the question, explain the protein structure and also discuss the forces and bonds involved in stabilizing the protein structure, which is very important. And this concept is important to understand the later concepts of the third unit, protein structure prediction methods, which will be discussed in the next class. Thank you very much for your patient listening. All of you, please attend this class. I will upload it on YouTube. If there is any technical issue, like the way I found in the previous class, I may not be able to upload on Campus Technology. In that case, you have to view on YouTube. But once it is uploaded on Campus Technology, definitely you need to view. Then only your attendance will be considered. So please take care of that. Thank you.